Hey, it's Maryanne. Welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. And today I'm going to talk about deepening donor relationships and how to have better donor conversations. Now, let me just say this, that what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to specifically talk about donor conversations, but this really works for any conversation that you want to have with truly anyone. I typically go for donors because fundraising is our biggest pain point. And often why people come to me for help in order to move through blocks and barriers around fundraising and have more aligned, authentic, and fruitful relationships with donors. But the methodology really works for anybody you want to move to action. That could be board members, volunteers, friends, colleagues, anyone in your life where you want them to see your point of view. But we can't pitch or push or convince or try to get somebody, right? We know that that doesn't work, that the minute we push somebody, they push back. But that's what we're taught to do. We're taught to have a case statement or a case for giving or have a thing. And like, I want you to see it my way. All right. I'm going to give you a non-fundraising example, which is one of my clients is working with an organization and they're partnering. It's a partner organization. And she feels like they're so rigid and very kind of set in their ways and a lot of maybe like needless bureaucracy, CYA stuff is really limiting their effectiveness. And just as a high level description of this situation, I'm going to leave it at that. What she would like them to do is just chill out a little and maybe re-examine like how their processes to make it easier for people to access a certain pot of money. Okay, so that's what her outcome is. But when we have an outcome like that, then we tend to want to talk to people and convince them and try to get them to see our way. What I want you to do is, if you're already in a car, just open up the window and throw that whole idea out of it. If you're not in a car, get in a car, get on the highway and chuck that idea right out of it because it's not going to work. It probably hasn't worked in the past and it probably won't work in the future. Why is this? It's because when we try to get somebody to see our way, all we do is mire people more deeply into the space they already occupy. Why? If you would go if you go to my last episode 166, I talk about why people act and why they don't. And I go into the psychology of our ego system. So something is within our ecosystem, within our own view, our sense of self, our view of self, we will accept that and defend it. If it's outside, we will reject it. And so I really unpack that. But again, but if we are if someone wants us to see something a different way and it's outside of our sense of self or our ecosystem, we will probably deny it, deflect it, and not accept it. So we want to stop trying to get people to see our side. It doesn't work. You're like, great, no problem. Now, what do I do? Well, I'm going to share with you exactly what to do. As you know, I coach and train people to master the art of influence. And influential leaders, right, know that the more decision-making power I give to someone, the more likely they are to choose what I want. Because they get to choose along the way. They get to feel like they're in control, right? There's no such thing as true certainty or control, but I'm just going to use that word. They get to feel like they're in control and of the situation. And the more in control they feel, the more open they're going to be, and they're more likely they are to see your point of view. So influential leaders, influential fundraisers don't have to pitch or push or sell. What do? They help people make empowered choices. So it's not your job to get people to see your point of view. Your job is to lead people to an empowered choice. But if you give them the choice, they'll most likely choose what you wanted them to choose. I know that sounds a little crazy and it absolutely works. It absolutely works. And just so you know, right, I say this a lot, I eat my own cooking, right? All of the methodologies I teach you, I use these every single day. And again, not just in my business, not just with my clients, with anyone in my life. Let's say I have a friend and I want my friend to like understand a certain point of view that I'm coming from or something like that. My job is not to try to convince them that this is important. My job is to give them the choice to choose what I'm saying. And if they do, and I give them the choice, they typically choose what I want. I'm going to walk you through this and give you lots and lots and lots of examples. Okay. Again, our job is not to push into people. Our job is to pull out. So if you think of it as stop trying to push things into people, push your case, push your argument, push anything into people. Your job is to pull out. And there is an art, a technique to this that you can learn. I can coach and train you in it and get you very, very good at it. And when you're very, very good at it, it's like moving through the world and this flow, like things just flow to you and people just do what you want so easily and gracefully because it's the energy of choice that's driving them. They don't do it because they have to. They do it because they're choosing to. That's a very, very different scenario. So let's get started. First of all, and this is the most important, we want to release the outcome. And I say this all the time. This is a big, big part of working, being an influential leader is releasing the outcome. Now, what does that mean? That means that although I have an intended outcome, I'm not tied to it. I don't need for it to happen. And this is really the most critical part because when you really want something to happen, you are going to start pushing. And when you start pushing, people will start shutting down. And I know it seems really counterintuitive. The less you want something, the more likely you are to have it. When you tell somebody whatever you decide is totally okay, they mostly will decide what you want. You have to really mean it. Whatever you decide is totally okay. If your mouth says whatever you decide is totally okay, but your brain and your body like, please say yes, please say yes, please say yes, they're gonna feel that. Remember, our energy speaks louder than words, right? So people can feel unconscious, unspoken, unknown from the conscious brain and pick up on all these signals. And desperation has an energy that is very off-putting. So to move away from desperation. So your mindset is the most critical piece. And you ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is, what do I want? So what would be a great thing to happen from this, right? What would be the best next step? So what would the likely in this situation be the best next step? And third, am I okay with any outcome? Am I okay with any outcome? And the answer is not yes, I'm because I just have to be. It's I know that if it's not this person, it's the next person. If it's not this donor, it's the next donor. It's like right? Remember, rejection is protection. Okay. So I am I okay with any outcome? Yes, because the less I want it, the least likely I am to get it. If you are really, really entrenched in getting somebody to see it your way, the more you want them to, the less likely they are. We have to give people the sovereignty. We love people for who they are, not who we want them to be. That is critical. So you're going to ask yourself those 3 questions. Who do I want? What do I want? What's the best out? What would be the best next step? And am I okay with any outcome? Once you have that answered, then you can enter this relationship, this conversation honestly. Right? I'm going to tell you a little story. One of my clients, she had a leadership organization, and she really, really wanted a new building for this to house this organization that she was the executive director, and the board saw the value of it, but was very concerned about money. It would be an investment, and her name's Jennifer. Jennifer was really, really wanted this building. So what was happening is a lot of cyclical conversations because when people would bring concerns to her, she wouldn't be able to really address them because she didn't want to see what they were saying because she just wanted the building so much. So in her mind, what do we want? I want this outcome. What is the next step? Getting the building. Am I okay with any outcome? No, she was tied to the outcome. So she wasn't seeing or hearing and really validating what they were saying because she didn't want that answer. Right. So the minute I said, let's go back, she goes, I keep having these conversations over and over and over again. Why do I keep having these conversations? I said, let's talk about it. And what she came to realize is that she was tied to the outcome and she really wasn't listening to their concerns. And I said, once you let go of how much you want this and really listen to what they have to say and validate what they say, this will go away. I promise you. And it did. And it did. Okay. And all right. So number one is we're going to release the outcome. Number two is forget your agenda. Whatever you want to have happen, whatever your position is, you're going to set it aside. Like literally, even if you have a notebook or something you want to share with somebody, even set it out of your field of vision. Set it aside. It's not important right now. They're not ready to hear it. And also, I can't meet people's needs until I know what they are. So what you want to do is to set that aside. Okay. What you want to do is to set aside, say you want to get somebody to sponsor an event and you've got all your sponsor stuff and you're so excited, right? To show them what you could do for them. Oh, I'll put your logo here and you get a table and you get this and then, and it's a parade of gold for you to sponsor. And you're very excited to share that with them. Don't stop. Don't have it, set it aside. Because the minute you bring that out and they're not ready to hear it, we're going back to pitching, convincing, selling, pushing, and they're going to shut down. Okay. So it's okay to have it. All right. Oh, if you're right now working on getting sponsors for something and you're like, oh, here's this big thing, or you're emailing people and you're emailing them the sponsor sheet with all the stuff, stop that. They're not ready to hear it. And you don't even know what their needs are. You can't even address them. So just set your agenda aside. Even in an email, set your agenda aside because I want to know what people's needs are. I want to know what, because then I can suggest them something that's going to meet their needs. And when I do that, they're going to be so much more open to hearing that. Then if I just start rattling off a bunch of stuff. All right. So step one, release the outcome. Step two, forget your agenda. Just set it aside. Okay. It's there. We know it. We're not ready for it yet. Number three, we're going to do what's called a pre-frame. So a good conversation starts with a pre-frame. Whoever sets the conditions for the conversation has the most influence over the conversation. You've ever been in a meeting and you're like, you go, no, you go, no, you go. And there's like this little moment of tension. Then you're going to have that like, oh, no, you go, you. No, we're going to stop that. You show up as a leader and you're going to do something called a pre-frame. And a pre-frame is just when you set the conditions for the conversation and ask for agreement. So for instance, let me just tell you how I learned to do this. So many years ago when I worked at 501 Creative, and we would have many meetings with potential clients, and the potential clients wanted to hear from us because we were the creative agency. And but we wanted to hear from the clients so that we could understand like if this would be a good fit and how we could help them. So there was always this little, not always, but a lot of times there would be a little bit of like a deference. Oh, you go. I'm deferring to the potential client because they're the potential client, and they're deferring to us because we're the experts. And it becomes this little thing. We're going to stop that. And you are going to set yourself up as the leader and say, so here's what I'd love to have happen. We want to hear from you and do a lot of listening. And then once we feel like we have a handle on our situation, we'd love to give some recommendation. And if it feels like it's a fit, we can put this in writing and send something over to you. You see that? And that was a little pre-frame that I would have used when I was at 501 Creative. What does that do? It sets the conditions for the conversation and it puts people at ease because they know what's coming next. Without a pre-frame, our brains are just trying to guess what's coming next. So we're not focused on the present. We're focused on What is she going to ask me for? How much is she going to ask me? Do I want to do this? Can I do this? How can I make this go away? You've probably been in conversations like that where maybe somebody's trying to sell you something and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to do this, but I don't know how to say no, or da 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 da. And your brain is spinning as to try to how to get out of that. So we're gonna stop that by setting up the pre-frame. Now everybody knows what's happening. Everybody knows what the goal of the conversation is, and you can have it honestly. And the key here is to do what you committed to do, right? Do your listening, do all it, whatever you say you're gonna do, and they agree to do it, then you're gonna hold up your end of the bargain. So the pre-frame is the most important part because it puts everyone at ease. So that a pre-frame for a donor conversation may look something like this, which is, I'm so glad you're here today and taking some time to meet with me. Here's what I'd love to have happen if it's okay with you. First, I want to hear from you and how things are going, how the business is going, or, whatever, like I want to hear about you and what's going on with your life. Um, you know, uh, how you're feeling about, your donation to our organization. I'm assuming this is a current donor. And once I, get a handle on where you're at, and then I'd love to share what's going on with us. And if there's something more we want to talk about, we feel like there's something you want to talk more about or get more involved in, we can talk about it. That's totally up to you. Okay. My job in this conversation is to give value. When I'm of value to you, you'll be of value to me. My job is not to sell them or convince them, but allow them to feel seen and heard. So when I set up the pre-frame like that, I'm saying, I'm going to center you first, and I'm going to hear all about you. And then once I do that and I feel like I have a handle on your situation and your needs and your goals, I can share a little bit about where we're at. We can see if it's a fit. And if it's great, if it is great, if not, that's totally okay. It's always great to meet people. So what I'm saying is I'm detached from the outcome. One of the workshops I do a lot is how to get people to say yes. And the best way to get somebody to say yes is to give them the permission to say no. So all along in this conversation, I am giving you the permission to say yes or no, and I'm going to honor that decision. And as much as I would love for you to say yes, 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 if it's a no, that's totally okay. All right. So I want to give you one more example of a pre-frame, which is a board member one-on-one. I think this format is absolutely amazing to use with board members. I think one of the most productive and most one of the best investment of your time as a development director, executive director, is doing board member one-on-ones, where you're going to meet with each board member. You can do it at the office. Like when I've been on boards, I was asked into the office. We'd have a quick, over a lunch. You can do it on Zoom. It doesn't matter. However, they feel comfortable, but you want to do a one-on-one, and you can use this format, right? Um, with them, as far as, what do you want from them? What's the next best step? Are you okay with any outcome? Pushing your agenda aside for what you'd like to have happen and giving them a good pre-frame, which is, hey, I'm so glad you're here. I run these meetings each year with every board member, and my goal is to listen to you and to your concerns and work with you to make this board experience the best experience you've ever had. So tell me, how's it going for you? And, or hold on, let me redo that, because I jumped in too quickly. I would say to make this the best board experience you've ever had. So I want to hear all about how it's going for you. I'll share a little bit about what's going on with the organization. And then together we can make a plan for moving forward so you can truly have the best experience ever. Does that sound okay to you? And they'll go, yeah, sure. And they relax because they know what's coming next. Okay, but I dug in a little too deep because I started to ask the first question, but I wasn't ready to ask the first question because I didn't get their permission. So at the end of the pre-frame, say, does that sound good to you? And they go, yeah, sure. And they relax because they know what's coming next. Like, it is a beautiful thing when you do this, because you literally see people's bodies just physically go, oh yeah, okay. They don't know what, they don't know. Okay, I get it. And then you're going to center them. So now we're off to step 4, which is we're going to ask questions. We're going to ask questions. So the question is, what can I do to make this the best board experience you've ever had? That's the opening question of the board one-on-one. And it's a beautiful, brilliant question to ask. You could say to a donor, what can we do to make this the best donor experience you've ever had? People have ideas and they will answer that question, and they love to answer that question. Because what I'm doing is I'm saying, I'm here to serve you, right? I am here to give you value. Um, and and so once you have that, all you have to do is listen. Now, I'm going to ask the questions and listen. And listening isn't as simple as you think it is, because here's the thing. Remember, we love people for who they are, not who we want them to be. And that can be tricky, because let's say we have a board member or donor and we want them to do something. Or like my client, she wants an organization to sort of rethink their operating. That's a big thing. That's a big value system, right? It's not going to happen overnight. That's okay. We're just planting seeds here, okay? We're planting seeds. So we're going to listen without arguing, in our minds, not with them, but in our minds, without trying to fix or solve the problem or anything that they have. All we're doing is listening to validate, to understand. Okay. I don't have to like it. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to want it. All I have to do is understand it, understand their point of view. So going back to my client who's working with the overly bureaucratic, what she feels like is overly bureaucratic. If, let's say I said, hey, tell me, what's going on in your organization. Seems like there's a lot of requirements to participate. And I'm sure there's like a story or a reason for that. I'd love to hear what it is. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I bet they got burned. Maybe they got in some kind of trouble. Maybe a few years ago, there was some kind of lack of oversight and they super overcorrected. And even though I don't agree with it, I don't have to agree with it. My only job is to understand it and validate it. So let's say that person said that, yeah, we had a scandal a few years back. We were overly scrutinized. They said it was too loose, and so we had to tighten. I said, God, it sounds like that was really hard for you. And following these rules and procedures sounds really important to you. Yeah, because what I'm hearing is that you are good stewards of this money and you want to make sure, double, triple sure that it's going to the right places. Is that right? They go, yes. And they're going to relax because you get them, you understand them. So say it's a donor, right? And your donor's like, well, I just love this organization so much, but sometimes I just feel a little left out or left behind. Like it's grown so much. And I just feel like my $1,000 doesn't mean that much to you anymore, when maybe 10 years ago, it really meant something. And every bone in your body wants to relieve that pain. And you want to say, oh no, your $1,000 is everything to us. We love it so much. Well, you're not resist that. Like sometimes you even have to like bite your tongue, or I would take a drink. So I keep my mouth closed and hear what they have to say, because we are fixers and we are solvers. And I understand that. And I love you for loving people and wanting to help them. But your job is to say, so what I'm hearing is that the organization's grown and you feel like it may have outgrown you, and what your gifts really don't matter anymore. That's a bummer. I mean, I can understand how, yeah, that would not be a very good feeling to have. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I if that wasn't easy for you, I totally appreciate you sharing that with me. And I can see how, yeah, you might think in an organization that was $1 million when you were giving is now $20 million, that your $1,000 isn't really that important anymore. I thank you for sharing. I completely get it. I go, oh, thank you. Note, I didn't fix it. I didn't solve it. I didn't make it go away. All I did was validate their opinion. And you're like, Maryanne, this sounds great, but when are we going to get to where I tell them what I want? I promise you, you're getting there. But I want to go through the steps again, because because Number 5 is validate, and I sort of lumped it into 4, which is ask the questions. So let me just walk you through the process, because it kind of just, it all flows for me so easily because I use it all the time. I want to make sure I break it down appropriately for you. So number 1, release the outcome. You're going to ask yourself those 3 foundational questions. 2, forget your agenda. Toss it out the window. It doesn't matter right now. 3, pre-frame. Set the conditions for the conversation. 4, ask questions. 5, validate. Okay. Validate, validate, validate. And watch them. You can watch them relax. You can watch them just like, yes, thank you. Oh my God. If somebody has a problem, if somebody's upset about something, this is the best way to make that go away. It's, oh my God, it sounds like you're really upset. I can totally see how, you know, you put in all this preparation and time and it really wasn't acknowledged. Yes, thank you. What people really want is still feel seen and heard. And I know you know this is true. Think of a time when you were trying to get your point across to a customer service agent, to somebody at a store or something like that, and they just weren't hearing you, and it's so frustrating. It's like you're beating your head right against but when people see you and understand, like, oh, even at a restaurant and they screw up your order, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry that happened, that must be so frustrating, I totally understand how upsetting this can be. Let me fix it for you right now. The minute you deflect, deny, dismiss, minimize is the minute that people go, nope, that's it. You're not taking my concern seriously. It is the most frustrating thing. So, but we don't have to fix it or solve it. In that moment, all we have to do is listen and validate. And trust me, this works. Okay. Now, once you've validated, this is the time where now you get to share what you want to share. Okay. Um, so where you can say, thank you so much for sharing that with me. If you're open to it, I'd love to share some of my thoughts on that, or this from our perspective, or what's going on with our organization. Now, let me go back to the sponsor example. Let's say you're talking with a company, you know, the sponsor person inside a company, and you really want them to sponsor this event. And, you know, they said to you, you know, what we really need, what we'd really love is to grow our social media base. We've got a new effort into that, and da da da. You're like, okay, all right. So what I'm hearing is social media is very important to you. It's a new thing. It's very critical that you grow, you know, you solidify this and expand your reach that way. Yes, that's what's important to us. Okay. Now I know what their needs are. So now, step 6, I can say, I have some thoughts I'd love to share about growing your social media. And I actually have something that I think might help you. Would it be okay if I shared it with you? Now they're open to it because they're like, they've just expressed a need and you can fulfill that need. Okay, let's go back to my original example of my client who wants this organization to like basically chill out with their bureaucracy. So what I'm hearing is it's really, really important that this money go to the right people. Yes. Okay. I'm so glad you said that because I agree with that too. Well, what I would like to share is maybe how that happens from my point of view, from accessing the money from that side, how I feel like what you're intending to do might not be actually happening. I would love, if it's okay with you, I would love to share it from my point of view, but only if you're open to receiving this. And 99 out of 100% of the time, they're going to say, yeah, sure, because you're giving them the choice. You're giving them the choice. Let's say you're talking to a corporate donor and they talk about how much they love to have outings for their team. They love team building things. And your organization does episodic volunteering and has team building opportunities. You're going to say, oh, you know, and you're hearing them say like, oh, I love team building and da da da. And then you're like, oh, sounds like your employees are so important to you. It's so amazing that you do that. And I said, you know, we do some of that. I would love to share how you might want to do some team building with us. Now, maybe your intention of this conversation was to get a sponsorship. But remember, when you're a value to them, they're a value to you. So maybe how you extend the relationship is you invite them in for a team building thing, get them to know them, and then say, thank you so much. Seems like we're really forming a relationship. Would you be interested in discussing a sponsorship? Whatever you decide is totally okay. All right. Do you see where this is going? So I'm going to share after I validate, that's my opportunity to share what, from my perspective, what I want, whether it's, a giving opportunity, whether it's board activity, whether it's, a partner, whatever it is, that's step 6. Okay, guys, right. That step 6 is sharing. And then step 7 is receive feedback. And we're not going to deflect, dismiss, or deny the 3 Ds. We're going to just keep validating the feedback. If there's objections, if there's rejection, that's totally okay. Objections are a wonderful thing because objections are a greater call to mastery. Objections are like, they're trying on the outfit. They're trying to think how this will work. So if somebody says, well, I'm not sure if it's in the budget this year, you can say, oh, well, it's not that much, or maybe we'll do half. No, because you're trying to fix it. You say, okay, well, tell me about your budget. What's going on with that? What would be a good time of year for you? What feels good to you? Because what do I want? An empowered choice, right? And it's okay, because the more I lean into what they want, the more likely they are to do what I want. And I know that sounds so crazy and counterintuitive, but it is absolutely 100% true. So we're going to receive the feedback, and we are going to be open to it and not try to fix or solve it, deflect or dismiss or deny. We just get our chance to validate. From that point, you would say, okay, well, let's say we go back to a sponsorship. So it sounds like if we could provide opportunities for you, like if we could collaborate on social media and expand your reach and blah, 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 that this might be a good thing for you. Is that, yeah, if it fulfilled these needs? Okay, well, here's what I'd like to offer. How would you feel about sponsoring this event? And we could partner with you, and through this event, grow your social media outreach. So only then do I ask for commitment. That is step 8. Asking for commitment is step 8. All right. What? So typically we ask for commitment from the top. Hey, I want to talk to you about a sponsorship. They're not ready to make that decision. There's no context for that. There's no, what? Wait, hold on. It's like, hey, we just met. Let's get married. Wait, hold on. All right. And then from there, it's let's book the next time. Let's book the next step. All right. Because in my mind, I already know what I'd like to have happen. Now I think that's actually going to happen, and we can sort of decide together, but we're going to book the next meeting in the meeting. So whatever we decide that's going to happen next, we decide it in that meeting. There may not be a full decision. It may be like, oh, I need to go talk to this committee, or which is fine. It's like, great. Why don't you go talk to your committee? And how about next week? What does Thursday look like? We could have a quick call to see where you're at in your decision-making process. You book the meeting in the meeting. It is the most important part of this, right? That is step 9. So typically what we do is we go from the top. Hey, do you want to do this? And people are like, what? Asking for a commitment, making an offer is step 8. So I'm going to run through the steps again, because I know I want you to make sure that you have them all. I'm going to run through them again, okay? Remember, release the outcome. Number 2, forget your agenda. Number 3, pre-frame, okay? Number 4, ask questions. Number 5, validate. Number 6, ask to share your thoughts. Number 7, receive feedback. Number 8, ask for commitment if it's appropriate. And number 9, book the next step now. Or a variation of number 9 would be like, hey, this doesn't feel like a fit. No problem. Bless and release. Let them go. If it's not a good fit, it's totally okay. Let them go. And I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me too. I talk to people all day. A lot of them aren't the right fit. And it's hard because I want everybody to be the right fit. You want everybody to say yes, but honestly, it's not the right fit. And in our fantasies it is, but in the reality it's not. And the more we can just release the outcome, remember, rejection is protection. They weren't for you, and that's okay. But what typically happens is that When we don't release the outcome, we look through the conversation with a filter and we only hear the things that are validating what we want to hear from our position. And we get all excited about something that they probably aren't excited about it now, but they don't know how to say no. They don't know how to get out of it. So then we continue this fantasy of let me think about it and get back to you, send me something over in writing. And it's all crap because we just don't know how to be honest. So by using this methodology, what you're doing is inviting people into an honest conversation from the beginning, because I am not tied to an outcome. You are not tied to an outcome. Whatever they decide is totally okay. And then you can move them through the process of making an empowered decision. And that's the best thing you can do. It truly, truly is, because whether the decision is yes or no of continuing the relationship or not, they will respect you for seeing them for who they are and not pushing them into something they didn't want to do. Pushing and convincing, it works in the short term, but we're here to build aligned, authentic, honest, transparent, long-term relationships. And this is the exact model of how to do this. Now, remember, you can do this with anybody. So in a board meeting, you might say, the board is saying, you can say, you're doing your listening and you're validating, but what you want them to do is get more involved in like driving leads for fundraising, which is a big thing that board members do that people have a hard time getting them to do that. Many, many podcasts and trainings on this you can access if you just go on into my resources page on my website. So let's say the board member says, oh my God, I love this organization. I love like bringing people in to volunteer. I love giving tours. You're like, oh, great. I love that too. And that really helps us. Would you be open to like assisting me that when people come in for a tour, you introduce them to me and I might have a conversation with them about, how they feel about the organization and if they'd like to get involved. Now that's fundraising, but I'm not using the language of fundraising, right? Because if they think fundraising is scary, I don't want to use that language, right? Because board members think fundraising is asking for money, but of course we know that all of those tours and those volunteers and those experiences all part of fundraising, right? So you're saying, hey, would it be okay with you if I could share how that could really help us on the development side of these tours and things that you're already doing? If we could just tweak it a little bit, it could really help us maybe raise some money. And they're like, well, do I have to ask people for money? Well, tell me what is it? Tell me about that. Well, I don't want to ask people for money. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, what would you be willing to do? Notice I'm not prescribing anything. I'm just asking. Well, I would be willing to introduce you to people. That would be amazing. Let's do that. So they're getting the choice. They get to call it. And so eventually they're going to do what I want them to do, which is give me some leads. But if I call them up and say, hey, will you give me some leads? They'll be like, sure. And they'll never do it. They'll never do it because there's no context and they're afraid, right? Because they don't know enough to be able to actually act. You have to walk them through the steps. When I'm of value to you, you'll be of value to me. When you set aside your agenda and open yourself up and you meet other people's needs, they will be so happy and so excited. They'll be like, oh my God, this is great. How can I help? One of the best one-on-one boards I ever had was, they said, how can we make this the best board experience you've ever had? And I gave them 2 ideas and we implemented both those ideas. And now I'm 100% invested. Like, what do you need? How do you help? Like, I am on fire for this organization because I felt so seen and heard and valued. See, hear, value. That's all you have to do. Stop pitching, stop selling, stop convincing. If you want to really learn how to do this, to master this, I teach this exact formula in my Uplevel Your Influence course, my fundraising coaching program. People raise a lot of money. They have amazing conversations, real, aligned, authentic, honest, easy, fun conversations with donors. They form real, true, aligned, graceful. I keep saying easy, but it's so true. Relationships with people that aren't mired in guilt, that aren't mired in pushing, that are just all about being of value and service to others, and they become a value and service to you. So try this. Let me know what it's like. If you want to really learn how to do this, there's a link in the show notes. You can book a time with me and we can talk more about how this can work for you. And we can talk more if you want. It's totally up to you about what it looks like to train with me. Of course, it's always up to you because I actually use these principles that I teach and they really, really work. Try it, let me know. See you next time on the Influential Nonprofit.